I want to convene the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. We know the meeting has been properly warned because we came here at 5:30 and went into executive session. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the February 20th, 26th, and March 1st meetings?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of February 20th, 26th, and March 1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. My one remark tonight is that at 6:20, the polls are open in Brattleboro until 7 p.m. So if you want to vote for select board, town meeting reps, moderator, all that stuff. School board.
Vote often.
Yes, vote often, and you have until 7 o'clock, and we're actually in the library right now because the voting is occurring in the Municipal Center in the Select Board meeting room. So that's my public service announcement for the day. Does the manager have any comments?
I don't this evening,
No.
thank you.
No comments. Anyone on the Select Board have any comments or committee reports?
I don't.
Nope.
No.
I know I should, but I don't.
We're moving right along. Public participation, this is the time in the meeting where anyone can make a comment about anything that is not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment on something that's not on tonight's agenda, please come up to the microphone. And even though we know who you are, Star, can you tell the viewers who you are?
Yes, I'm Star Latronica, and I'm the director of this lovely library. Welcome back to the library, everyone. And I would like to take this opportunity to let everybody at home and those here know that our Vermont Humanities Council lecture that was scheduled for tomorrow night has been canceled due to weather and will be instead delivered on June 6th. So we'll see you then.
It's beautiful out right now. Look at Steve.
That's the thing, it was too nice a weather to have a lecture. And so that still gives everybody a chance to read the very fine book, The Known World, which will be the subject of the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Star. Yes, please come up.
Thank you.
Mr. Nickerson.
I'm Nick Nickerson, and I'm just a simple country boy. And I've been looking at something that seems to be a big issue, which is drug treatment, or drug addiction treatment versus drug addiction punishment. And I think there's a lot of reading that I need to do to look at this drug treatment concept instead of punishing and ruining people, because it seems like we're getting to be the only country in the world who does it, and who does it at such a horrible rate. Our incarceration rate is terrible. Now, usually when I hear white privilege, I look at white privilege as me, I die laughing, because I don't feel at all privileged, and I don't think I'm that privileged except to be an American and to be in the bubble of love in Brattleboro. I have read recently that whites take drugs at the same rate as blacks do. Yet 600%, the arrest rate for blacks is 600% higher than the arrest rate for whites. And so I asked myself why. And from a little reading I've done, it seems that it is because blacks are easy pickings. They are poor, they can't afford fine lawyers who are well connected, and they themselves have less connections with the political elites. Therefore, it is much easier to arrest blacks than it is to whites, than it is to arrest whites. And this seems like white privilege, and I'm really sorry to see it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nick.
Is there anyone else in the public? Yes, Lisa.
Nice, Nick.
Please come up.
Right.
This is a little impromptu, but.
Well, you're here. Go for it.
How we operate.
So my name is Lissa Weinman, and I co-own 118 Elliott on Elliott Street with my husband, and have lived here for about 11 years. And I wanted to make sure that the Select Board was aware of the People's Places and History of Words in Brattleboro, Vermont project, which I am directing along with 5 other nonprofits, the Brooks Memorial Library, the Brattleboro Historical Society, the Brattleboro Literary Festival, Right Action, and Marlborough College. These 5 institutions have come together to create an audio tour of the greater Brattleboro area of places important in the history of words. So for instance, Nolaka, the Rudyard Kipling home, Saul Bellow, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Longfellow. There's a very rich history of writing, bookmaking, publishing, and printing in Brattleboro that the world at large is not really aware of. So we're going to make the world aware that this is a very special place in the history of words. And it's a 3-year project. We received a National Endowment for the Humanities grant. It's a matching grant, so we have to raise every dollar gets matched by the federal government. For every dollar, we match a dollar. And we're well on our way. So the reason I want to bring it to your attention is that it's not just a group of us that are creating an audio tour, it's the community that's getting involved. And we're doing these monthly roundtable discussions on a different site every month. And this month, on Thursday, we're doing the Abenaki history and their history of language and words in the Brattleboro area. So over the next few years, you're going to be hearing a lot about the Words Project. We're looking for community members to lead research teams. We're providing them with the audio equipment, thanks to Guilford Sound. Thank you very much, Guilford Sound. So classrooms in the CSU School District and even outside, Leland and Gray, Twin Valley High School, Brattleboro Union High School, students are doing research, creating these podcasts. And we're really excited because we think it's not only going to be important to bring tourism to Brattleboro for biking, walking, and driving tours, but also to inform natives as to why our home is so special. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that, and if you had any questions about the project, let me know. We have a website. It's brattleborowordsproject.org, and anybody who wants to get involved can also email brattleborowords@gmail.com.
Now, where is Thursday nights? Is that a public event?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's open to the public. It's going to be Joe Rivers and Rich Hulsha talking about sites important in the Abenaki history, and they're all over the place. It's not just the petroglyphs in the West River. There's a lot of different sites. Wantosticket Mountain is one of them, and this is a project that's not just Brattleboro. It's Brattleboro-centric, but our tours emanate out in circles around Brattleboro and actually do include some sites in Hinsdale as well, and potentially Chesterfield. But it's really up to the public at large to decide that there's a special place. We have a whole list of sites, some 50 sites that we've identified on our website as important in the history of words. And people can go and they can choose a site, and they'll get guidance as to how to do the research and produce the podcasts. And I think it's going to be really terrific for the town. I think it's going to be something that makes the whole world more aware of Brattleboro, working with Wikipedia and working with Google Maps. So it's multi-layered, but what we're really doing is putting this history and this very unique history of Brattleboro on the digital map for years to come.
In time and place of the Thursday night?
Where and when?
Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. at 118 Elliott. For now, these are going to be taking place at 118. We're donating the space for monthly meetings and for these different gatherings relating to the project. But in the warmer weather, we're going to try to do some of them in situ. So we'll actually go to locations and have some of these roundtable discussions. People will get a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up to the public because, again, members of the community have a lot to share, and we're hoping to capture some of that.
Great.
Great. I was
Thank
just
you.
curious.
Yes,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Do you tie in at all with the Brattleboro Literary Festival?
The Brattleboro
Because it seems
Literary
like-
Festival is one of our partners in the
great,
project.
Great.
So
you
this,
probably mentioned that and I missed it.
you might remember that last year we had the mobile unit on Main
Yeah,
Street
right.
with the Lucy Terry Prince
Sure.
exhibit, and Shanta Lee Gonder, who might be joining all of you, had personified Lucy Terry and continues to do so. She'll have to be doing a program at the library, I believe, next month. And the Literary Festival will also be doing Royal Tyler, who's considered the nation's first playwright. And he was born in Guilford and from Brattleboro. He wrote many plays, and they're going to be celebrating his history at the Brattleboro Literary Festival in October as part of this project.
So it won't be just Brattleboro, it'll be like surrounding areas? Like
Yes, we've got
Putney even or whatever?
Putney. We're going as far out right now as Wardsboro, actually, for the driving tour, the driving aspects of the
Because John
tour.
Irving lived in Putney, right? Didn't he write The World According to Garp?
Yes, he did. He did live in Putney and he did write there for a while.
A long
John
time,
knew
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That is a
And
fun fact.
so many writers here. What we're really doing is trying to figure out. We're really trying to investigate over, and this project will culminate in these audio tours by the end of 2020. It's a 3-year project. But what we're really trying to get at is what are the ingredients that makes Brattleboro so special that has drawn so many writers to this area? And we hope in turn we'll be attracting more writers to come to the Literary Festival and to explore Brattleboro, both as visitors and potential residents.
That's great. I'm excited about it. I just joined the Historical Society. So
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, they do some really great things.
Yeah, and Joe Rivers has been doing podcasts with the students. There's about over 100 podcasts at the Brattleboro Historical Society site that are done by kids, and they're amazing, from just all kinds of Brattleboro history. But our project will kick that up a few notches. Yeah.
Stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to say something that's about something not on tonight's agenda? Terry, please come on up. Oh, Terry, yes. Just tell the viewing audience who you are.
Terry Carter, Brattleboro. Those of you that are familiar with me, in the last few years I've sat in on committees and organizations that are trying to improve our roads and trails and the quality of life in Brattleboro. And one of my projects that I took on unexpectedly was a year ago last spring, walking along the West River Trail, I discovered a large amount of tires in one of my favorite wetlands. If you go to the marina and walk along the West River Trail, which they fixed up, it's beautiful, and we encourage, tourists and local people to use it. But as you're walking towards the boathouse on the right over the last few years, and I know I walk this place almost daily, and because this wetland has amazing animal life, red-winged blackbirds, cranes, ducks, turtles, just, I could go on and on and on, but I've seen the quality dissipate. And so a year ago, I contacted the town, and Patrick and I went out and I showed him the various sources that these tires are very well coming from. And he in turn gave me a link, and I reported it to an environmental agency up north. And
Terry, is this just before the Quonset hut? In that area?
well, this is where the marina is.
Right, no, and then there's a Quonset
Yeah,
hut.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
before
yeah.
that.
As you
Yes.
park at the marina and
Yes.
you're walking up,
Right.
it's right there on the, it's
Right.
beautiful.
Oh, it is. It's
But
great.
I encourage every board member to, while the
Right.
leaves are off the trees, and maybe after the storm tomorrow, after the snows melt, you'll see on the right, there were plenty of tires last year, but someone very recently dumped there's probably twice as many tires there. You can see because the ice, some of them are still on the ice, and it's a huge pile. But number one, it impacts the environment, and hopefully that law is going to be voted in where this town does become more conscientious about, our quality of life. But this in turn is a very grassroots thing where we all need to be involved. And I spoke with Peter earlier. I am going to contact my person up north and show her photographs and point out that that I know of has come of this in the last year since I reported it. And also, Peter, I wanted to clarify something we talked about. Now, you told me this afternoon that people did meet about it after I reported it and came to the decision that it was okay. And was the state involved?
Yeah, not that it's okay, but that it's within the state's jurisdiction, not the town's jurisdiction, which is why Patrick gave you the contact information for the Department of Environmental Conservation.
Okay, so it was more the
They're the governmental authority that has the ability to address this.
Okay, and I've agreed to forward everything I communicate with you, and I will be
Perfect.
forwarding photographs. But if any of the board members can't get out there, I have photographs, and I'll be more than happy to email them to you. Jan, you have my email, right? Yeah, feel free to contact me. I have a very extensive amount, the more recent ones, but also the ones that have been here for a while. So I encourage the board to go take a look for yourselves, but if you don't have the time, do feel free to contact me. And if anybody has any ideas or any person that might be helpful to contact up north, please let me know. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Does anyone else have any comments about something that's not on tonight's agenda? Great. We're going to move on to liquor commissioners. Would someone like to make a motion to convene as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are liquor commissioners. And our one item under liquor commissioners is we're being asked to approve a festival permit for Four Seasons Media, which is WTSA, for their annual Brattleboro Brewers Festival, which is going to take place on May 26, 2018, up at the Vabeck Field. And is there anything we need to know besides it looks like everybody's okay with it?
Everything's in order. It's ready for your approval. We recommend that you do approve it this evening. The one thing I would say that's just slightly different from usual because of the scale of this event, it's been done very successfully in the past. We expect it to be done very successfully again. It's been at this same location when it's been held previously. So the scale is a little larger than some of the others that go on, and so the police and fire department work together with the organizers, and there's still some work to be done around that in terms of just fine-tuning the details for what will be required by police and fire. But we recommend the review is such that they've looked at this, they say it's going to be fine, so long as they work with us on the details like they always have in the past, then police and fire will sign off. So subject to those final details being worked out with the two public safety departments, staff recommends your approval.
Does anyone on the board have any questions about the permit or the festival?
I've got my tickets already.
Yeah, so we know what Tim has to vote. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about the permit? Would someone on the board like to make a motion?
Well, if you've already got your tickets, go ahead.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve a festival permit for Four Seasons Media, Inc. to host the Brattleboro Brewers Festival on May 26, 2018, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the Famolari Field, located at 40 University Way.
We have a motion to approve a festival permit for Four Seasons Media to host the Brattleboro Brewers Festival.
So before we vote, if we vote no, does he lose his ticket? Oh, wow. Good thought.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Of course I
Would
am.
someone like to make a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
I have a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Up next is we're being asked to approve an application for a Vermont Community Foundation Spark Connecting
Yay.
Community Grant in the amount of $3,000 for the construction of the skateboard park. Is there anything exciting we need to know? It's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. We're asking that you do authorize us to apply for the $3,000 grant.
Does anyone on the board have any questions, comments? Nope.
More power to them.
Anyone in the public have any questions or comments about the Vermont Community Foundation Spark Grant?
Well, then I'll move to approve the application for a Vermont Community Foundation VCF Spark Connecting Community Grant in the amount of $3,000 to help pay for the construction of a skate park at Living Memorial Park.
We have a motion to approve the application for Vermont Community Foundation Spark Grant for the skateboard park. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is a discussion on the winter road maintenance. And we see we have Department of Public Works
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Head, Department Head Steve Barrett. And I think, just to put it in context, this came out of our last meeting. I think I may have started it about potholes.
You did.
Yeah.
And then I said not to fill them, just to put a sign up.
And then Brandy wanted tulips planted
Yeah,
or
and then
something.
you want the tulips in them.
So we decided
And I
before we,
put your letter on Facebook.
Yeah,
so before we got totally more out of control, we decided maybe you can give us like a
yeah.
update and what the town does to patch it or solve it or whatever.
You did a great job by it,
Yeah.
Western Avenue.
Yes, you did.
So I'm Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works, and yes, last week I was on the edge of my seat watching the board.
I'll bet you were.
So I did a little summary here. I'd like to just go over what we do, how we do what we do, and hopefully it will educate all of us a little bit on the procedures. There's a lot of questions that come up this time of year. There's a lot of frustrations. We understand that. So I've just done a little summary here. And this year's been a very difficult for roadways in New England and Brattleboro as a whole. We experienced sub-zero temperatures causing frost actions to the roadways, along with multiple freeze-thaw cycles that deteriorate the roadways. The frost actually lifts the road up and brings the road down. You'll notice a lot of times there'll be manholes or water valves that appear to have sunk. They have not sunk. They have stayed in place and the road is actually elevated up from the frost. And that also assists in deteriorating the roadways. The most notable and deplorable roadway in Brattleboro is Western Avenue. The road surface has failed, resulting in an overabundance of potholes from exit 2 to the West Brattleboro Village. The potholes are formed on the road as the road surface fails, introducing water into the roadway, which weakens the soil beneath the pavement. Traffic applies a load onto that, and what that does is it stresses the pavement and causes it to crack and fail, and then hence you have a pothole. That's how potholes appear. Western Avenue is unique in itself because underneath it there's a concrete roadway. The roadway was originally a gravel road, and then there was an effort, I'm not exactly sure, maybe Tim, once you've been on the Historical Society for a while, you can find this out. But to the best of my recollection of history, it was somewhere in the 40s, maybe the 50s. But a concrete roadway was actually poured on Western Avenue.
Well, Martha should know.
That's right.
I hope she's listening.
There's several streets in town that, Canal Street's one, Western Avenue is one, Burge Street, and you'll notice those streets don't last that long as far as with hot mix over. And the reason is there's an expansion joint. The road, the concrete road itself, because there weren't large vehicles, is only 18 feet wide. And now if you look at Western Avenue, it's 36 feet wide in different areas. So what was done is to pave over that whole surface. So the concrete road is still there, only 18 feet wide. There's an expansion joint about every 20 feet. And so when the frost action happens or the truck traffic that goes over these roadways, you'll see the cracks, and you can see every 20 feet there's going to be a crack. And on the edges of the roadway, that's where that concrete road ends, and there's just hot mix there. So it can't withstand those type of loads or the traffic flows. So that's another reason that Western Avenue is a little unique by itself. Western Avenue is a Class 1 highway. What does that mean? That means that the state is responsible for resurfacing the roadway, and the town is responsible for general maintenance. So, in this case, we struggled with the maintenance because there's a point when is it maintenance and it actually needs to be rebuilt. In 2014, the state was gracious and they awarded us a grant, as everybody remembers, and it was a 3/4 inch shim which patched over all those ugly potholes and provided a smooth road for 3 years. Since then, that has broken down, and again, we're back to where we started in 2014 with the need to have a larger capital project. So recently, town representatives provided testimony to the Legislative Transportation Committee to request support to resurface Western Avenue. We understand there's a larger project on Western Avenue. The state's jurisdiction starts at Edward Heights and goes west all the way to Wilmington. And the town is responsible for maintenance from Edward Heights coming back towards town. But again, the state is responsible for these resurfacing projects. So we've tried to encourage our representatives to help. And I must comment that Representative Molly Burke has been very active in supporting and advocating for this proposal. So we'll see where that goes. But this is a need, something we really need with the number of vehicles that use that roadway.
Is there a way to ask the state if they're going to, if they do something, to do it right? And to dig up the concrete and and end this 3-year cycle of potholes that it's not gonna stop, because all we're doing was we're overlaying the blacktop on the edges that are gonna fall in because there's nothing supporting it underneath.
Again, that's one of the things that has been discussed, but it's always been prohibitive to absorb those extra costs to take that concrete road out of there. So I think we're going to struggle with that. They understand that, but we have miles and miles of road, Route 5, Route 142, and that's just in Brattleboro, that have these concrete roads underneath them. So there is the realizations, there's the understanding, but as we come up with new products too, and new designs, there may be fabrics and things that can be used that they didn't have for tools in the past. So there are, there's always innovation and there's new things coming along. So, we'll have to see. But you are correct, if you could eliminate that. The other thing you could do is to pave it more frequently. So knowing that this road's a very busy road, you could say, history has shown us.
Every 3 years.
This is,
2 years.
in my career, has been many, many times that I've come and talked to boards about Western Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
So it repeats itself. So maybe we could convince them to revisit this maybe every 7 years where it gets that overlay and doesn't require a total rebuild. That's what we try to do with our program, and it doesn't always work. We have roads that fail completely, but we try to take some of the roads that are just starting to deteriorate and put an overlay on them, and it gives you 10 more years of a usable road. So, it's a mixture of methods for roads. The state struggles the same as we do. Sometimes we'll spend more money because we'll get more miles of road done by doing an overlay on a road that appears to the public to be in good condition, but that will give us 10 more years. And if it doesn't sit well, if you're sitting on a road, and maybe it doesn't have the traffic volume, but it has large potholes and it's deteriorated pretty bad. So that's one thing that people do notice. We try to educate people to that, but
This is
it all
Route 9.
works out.
I mean, that's probably one of the heaviest traveled roads
It is.
in the state of Vermont.
That section is from the
Yeah.
interstate out to,
Right.
out to Marlboro is.
I mean, it's,
So the
Or to
highway
Wilmington.
department monitors all the roads in town, and work orders are issued to identify any potholes that we receive, or if we receive complaints, or if we identify a complaint. All those are recorded, all those are reported, and there's a work order done to patch those holes. The town has a responsibility to protect the public safety and to make every attempt to patch and repair holes in the roadway. In 2014, the town conducted a scoping study on Western Avenue. Over 13,000 vehicles, including 500 trucks, use that Western Avenue a day. So when we talk about a patch, and we talked a little bit, the board talked a little bit last week of, you're putting all this effort into repairing a hole, a pothole with a patch, and it doesn't last that long. But if you take the math on this, a patch in a roadway that fails within 2 hours can still prevent several hundred cars from receiving damage or getting into an accident. That alone is worth it to us as a town. We have a responsibility to protect the drivers. So even in unfavorable conditions, we continue to patch. There are several methods that we use to repair potholes, and there's thousands of products, thousands. And there's all kinds of equipment that you can buy. We're reading about it's one of the larger communities in Massachusetts where they have a $300,000 patching machine that uses a pea stone and an asphalt liquid tar. And it's successful for them, but they have such a high volume. It would work for them, but not a community of our size. A few things that are used is cold patch, and that's kind of like an undercoating in your car. That's the one that you see goes in there and sometimes has a life expectancy of a week or two. Sometimes it has the expectancy of 2 hours, or 5 minutes, or 5 steps.
Right.
But the interesting thing is a cold patch could be used in the spring, and then if there's so many different potholes, that could stay intact. And with the warmer weathers, that cold patch is going to stay there all summer long, all the way through the fall. And then it's going to reappear next spring. So what we try to do is if we identify some of the larger holes, we'll go back and we saw cut those and patch them properly. But with the number of potholes, you don't always get all the different holes. So some of them are leftover cold patch from last year on different roadways that you see. But if you travel the roadways in the summer, they're going to seem fairly smooth, and there's just a couple patches, and things look fairly normal. With this freezing weather and the water getting in, they all come out in the springtime.
But you have to wait for the hot mix plant to open up to be able to do the,
That's correct.
yeah.
So unfortunately, as you know, the product doesn't last that long with the application. The second option that we have is to patch from our hot box. Several years ago, we were able to purchase what we call a hot box. It's heated with propane and then electric. What we do is we use a type of hot mix that is cold. We put it in the box. It heats. It has an automatic thermostat. It heats overnight. And what that will do is holds 3 tons. Now, 3 tons may sound like quite a bit. The other day, we used 27 tons on the avenue.
That's right.
So it's very effective to make a good patch because the mix is heated. It can make a patch that will last longer, if not as good as hot mix in the right application. But slow, tedious, but there's a pothole on Main Street that everybody's probably familiar with across from Brown and Roberts. That's going to be a good candidate to saw cut or jackhammer it open and put some hot mix in there, and then that will be solved, that problem.
You may want to take the Volkswagen out of it first.
Yeah, just see how that works.
Before you do that.
And then the last is patching from a hot mix with hot mix from a hot mix plant. The hole is milled, sawed, jackhammered, then cleaned and dried. Then a liquid tar tack coat is applied, and then the hot mix is placed in the hole, and then it's compacted with either a roller or a tam, so it has good compaction. That's the best way to patch a hole. If you had all the people in the world, you had all the resources in the world, you would go out and do that every single time. So, that's what we did last week.
And it's amazing.
Only because it was
I drive it every day.
And it was thanks to Warner Brothers.
Yes.
In Sunderland, Mass. They contacted us, which, we thought was pretty good. We were out searching for any hot mix plant that might open. And there was a lot of other cities and towns. We're not alone. This is a hard year for everyone. And so what we did is we got in line. We had to reserve our spot. So we reserved a spot.
I bet they were busy.
And we got our place in line. And then we also got a hold of Manning Paving, who has small milling machines. These aren't the big machines that you see when we redo large road construction projects. They're more for the smaller, which this application was absolutely perfect for us. So they milled out the old patch and all the cold patch and the stuff in the worst holes. And we used 27 tons. And again, if you see our dump trucks around town, that's equivalent to 4 dump truck loads. The larger trucks, it'd be more equivalent to 2 of the very large 10-wheelers. So that's how much mix we use. We also, at the same time, took advantage of the hot mix plant being open, and we did other streets in town. So, Western Avenue isn't our only street in town. We went out and patched some of the other holes. Now, having said that, there's holes on Western Avenue we weren't able to get in this process, because this was a detailed process. We got the worst of the worst. So that's been been completed. And as you know, that the colder temperatures are on the way. We got snow tonight. We're going to go through the freeze thaw again. So that's kind of my spiel on how we got to where we are, or how we do what we do. And then, because I'm from Public Works, and I want you to know how I feel about the funding, I have to add just a little bit here. And I found this is pretty interesting, actually. 1996 is when I took over as Director of Public Works. 95, I was interim. And so it was interesting because the Select Board reinstituted the 5-year capital improvement plan. This is a new concept where the roads and the infrastructure will be made as a high priority. So the capital road budget was set at $200,000. I remember they came to me, we did an evaluation. We looked at the roads in town and figured out how could we make a difference and what amount of money would be necessary, because the board at the time, we had gone through a full cycle, and you're gonna go through this cycle all the time. But we started at $200,000. What's interesting is in 2018, the $200,000 for capital road funding will pave less than a mile of roadway. So, on average, we'll pave a roadway about every 40 to 50 years. And so, sometimes when we get into some neighborhoods, we got into Washington Street, and it hadn't been paved since the 70s. And some people said, you know, I'm so glad you did that, because I didn't know if I was gonna live long enough. So there's cycles where, and that just gives you an example of the need. And we all know that.
What's the current number that used to be 200,000?
Our
The road
number
budget,
this year is
yeah.
250 that we budgeted,
Right.
and we had to make some sacrifices last year, and it went from 300 to 250, and again this year. So we've made some huge sacrifices here the last couple of years, equivalent to a third of what our yearly capital budget would
And just
be.
ballpark, I don't know if you, I know you haven't been writing all this down, and there's a storm coming, so we're not done. But any approximation, like within $50,000 of how much over that 250 we're gonna be when this is, well, until Saturday or Wednesday?
I don't.
We're over that, clearly, yeah.
For the, you're talking
Yeah,
to,
for this
Oh,
winter.
yeah, but he's,
yeah.
no,
no, you're talking,
you're talking
Operating
solid.
funds.
Yeah,
So that,
oh, you're talking a whole different beast.
yeah, that's a whole.
Well,
I
we
can
didn't,
switch channels to that too.
yeah, I mean, that must have been extra or unanticipated expense to do the milling and filling last week.
We've stayed within our budget to do that type of work. We, you know,
Because you
we
anticipate
together,
that every year.
we budget hot mix, we
Yes.
budget coal patch,
Yeah.
and also, if we need to, we can use some of our capital roads expense to fill that. So this is taken care of, this is within our budget.
But there are things you're not gonna be able to do in the spring and up until July that,
Yeah, there'll be some
Yeah.
things that we'll
get
have a
left out,
discussion
yeah.
as we get through a few more
Oh,
storms.
he's gonna open up the other.
and salt, sand, and overtime
Yeah.
is where we're gonna see an operating budget.
Exactly, yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are salt and
hit.
sand, Steve. That's where he's going.
It's all good.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna be
All
over
in
in
a
some of
day's
the line
work.
items, but,
I'm sure you are.
you know, the sand, it's purchased, we're not gonna use anymore, that's flatlined. There's a little money left in the salt, and I'm sure that will be gone. There's a reserve, there's actually, equipment rental, there's 4,700. Parts, there's still 10,000, but I know that'll be over. These heavy wet storms are the worst for equipment.
Yep.
They really take its toll because it's heavy and it's wet, and also on the back roads, you tend, because they're soft, your wheels go down and your plow goes down and your plow goes into the dirt, and
That's
it
gonna
doesn't
happen
do
a
good
lot.
things with shear pins and other. The diesel, we're looking pretty good on diesel. There's a pretty good amount there. The balance right there is around 40,000. The salt, we're in the minus of 4,200, but that's pretty good for a year like this, out of $120,000 in salt.
Is there salt available?
There is.
Okay.
And we've had just the right amount. Our supplier has treated us like just the right amount
That's good.
each time. There's sometimes when we're getting a little nervous, There's one time that you will see, you probably noticed that there was sand put on some of the other roads. We really don't like to do that.
Sweep it up.
We felt we had to do it, yeah. It goes into the stormwater
Yep.
system. You have to use a sweeper more.
Yeah.
It costs you more money to use the sand than it does salt. But that's what we had to do. And then some of the other chains and blades, and there's one winter maintenance item that, with the blowers, they had some serious problems, and that's over by 30,000, so. So within all the budget itself, we'll look at it, and we'll make decisions on, what we can spend things on and what we can't spend things on. And we always review that as we proceed closer to the end of the budget year. And that is my report.
Sidewalk
That was
mouth.
very helpful.
That was
Does
very
anyone-
good.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
They're gonna need more money next year.
Thank you. That
Did
was
a great job. Mike.
That was very, next time we'll have you come in before we all start editorializing.
Yeah, that was good.
That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Were you throwing things at the TV at last meeting?
No.
Oh, you should have.
Oh, the
I know how to
next
turn it
one.
off.
That's all you, huh, David?
What's that?
You're in the next one, huh?
I'm
Thank
next,
you.
yeah.
Go right to cartoons.
Next up,
This should be cheerful.
we'll pass this over to David Scholes because he wants to talk to us about sending a letter to the State Board of Education and an Agency of Education about Act 46.
Yes. I think, as you know, there was a vote in the town about whether the school districts should merge, and the town and the surrounding towns all overwhelmingly, by more than a 2-to-1 margin, voted to retain our current structure and to meet the goals of Act 46 under that structure. And the law includes a section for places where, well, what it says is an education district as envisioned, and that means a merged one, may not be possible or the best model to achieve Vermont's education goals. And so if we want to, despite the fact that the vote said we don't want to merge, if we don't come up with a proposal to merge, the state will impose something, probably what was submitted as the model for the merger. So showing that a merger is not the best model or may not be possible is part of the task of the Alternative Governance Structure Committee, which is made up of formerly Dummerston and Vernon School Board, 2 members of Brattleboro School Board, 2 members of the Putney School Board, and we had one from Guilford whose term was, who actually resigned and whose term was expired. And the reason that the point we're trying to make about Brattleboro is that the situation here is unusual across the state, where one of the entities, one of the school districts, is 6 or 7 times the size of the others. And it's also because we're, as you know, we're an economic hub, that we are currently, in our property taxes, we pay for a lot of the infrastructure that supports the economic activity in the surrounding towns and a lot of the economic activity and services that those towns need to survive. Because of that, our property tax rate, combined school and town, is typically 30 to 80 cents more than than the surrounding towns. And that, you'll see that over years. It's always that much. And it took a while to figure out how to calculate what the merged tax rate would have been in any of the 3 years that have just gone by when this was being discussed. But we finally worked out a method that we thought would accurately do it, checked it out with Brad James, who is the Agency of Education person who tells you about these things, these kinds of things. And he said, yeah, that you'll get an estimate, an accurate estimate. So we did that and came up with a spreadsheet that I sent to you all. And it shows that that current 30 to 80 cent property tax rate would be significantly exacerbated if we had merged in 16, 17, or this current year, and had an average tax rate. And the effect would have been that yours aren't in color, but the things in parentheses are tax rates that went down. And you can see in 16, we would have gone up nearly 2 cents, whereas Dummerston went down 6.5, and Putney almost 5.5 cents of rates that are already lower. And the effect, I mean, aside from sort of obviously inequitable and making worse the the differential, it would make people want to buy a house in Brattleboro if our taxes are that much higher compared to the other towns. It also would mean, unless we added to the all the budgets in order to expand services in the surrounding towns, if we kept the current programs just as they are, Brattleboro would have to lose programs. We wouldn't, if we were going to add anything, we would have to, if we didn't add to the tax rate, I'm sorry, I'm not getting this out right. If nothing changed, Brattleboro would have to shift, some of the resources would have to shift to these surrounding towns, because to equalize the programs that we're talking about, it'd have equity across the districts in inputs, in programs, not necessarily in outcomes. There'd have to be expansions in those towns, and that would happen automatically, and Brattleboro's rate would go up automatically. And we having the largest level of poverty, and obviously the most students, it's a significant impact, and the consequence of that would be that the chronically underserved students in our communities would be further underserved. They would be further disadvantaged unless we put a lot more money into the system. And under the merged system, the money would go, everybody would pay the same tax rate, and the money would go in, and then the board would decide how to spend it. And it's likely that money would be added and those programs would be expanded that way. But it would happen, we'd have elected representatives be making that decision, but it would definitely mean that we would be paying more under an average tax rate. And under the alternative, which is to keep our supervisor union as it is, to add some structures, and we've got some structures that have been vetted by the Agency of Education, vetted by the School Board Association. Jim Kane, former business manager, has spoken in support of it, and they've been run by Paul Gillies, a pretty prominent education legal expert across the state, and they're all systems that would work, processes that would work, structures that would work. And it would keep the decision about the taxes in the towns. We would still maintain control of our tax rate and not see that shift going to the other towns. So I think for a law that's supposed to promote equity for students, we already have a pretty high level of equity across this district. If you look at the test results, which is all we have really to look at, we don't have any other measure that we have developed yet to see how well students are performing. We do individually and to help the teachers with their instruction, but as far as looking at how kids in Dummerston do compared to Guilford or Brattleboro, we don't have any way to look at that except for the statewide tests, and there's a lot of similarity. There's not a lot of inequity in the outcomes that we know about, but the inequity is in the tax rates. And since we're already 30 to 80 cents above everybody else, to go further above, I mean, it would be one thing for us, our rate to go up because we wanted to support activities in the surrounding communities. It's another thing for theirs to go down, which is what the averaging does, which is what the merger does. So Dummerston and Putney, for instance, would get for two of those 3 years, Putney less so in the third year, would have seen significant tax reductions and additional programs, and we would have seen tax increases. So it seems to me that's a situation where an education district is not the best model. So I would like us to send a very brief letter to the Secretary of Ed, because she will be talking with all of us about these processes and proposals, and to the chair of the State Board of Ed, because they decide. The fact that we voted to retain our current structure and try and work with it doesn't mean that that's what happens. The state board gets to make that decision. So I would like the select board to weigh in terms of our concern about the effect on Brattleboro, particularly our property tax, if a merger were forced upon us.
So the thing we have in our binder, do you want us, it says to consider sending a letter approving the alternative, asking them to approve the alternative governance structure? Is that
Right.
specifically what you're looking for? Okay. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or questions?
I would just like to see how it's written up. I mean,
The letter itself?
yeah, the letter
Yeah,
itself.
I would say not much more than respect the wisdom of the voters and rejecting consolidation and approve the alternative governance structure.
You serve on the school board.
Yes.
What has been the school board's official response?
In December, we voted 3-2 to not support the alternative. At that point, we didn't know if we'd be able, for sure, we hadn't had legal opinions on whether the alternatives would allow districts to share teachers, which is an important consideration for savings in the future. We didn't know whether the Regional Education Fund, which would be a contribution by each of the school districts to support program changes in the surrounding communities if they needed it to get for equity. We didn't know if that was legal either. And for instance, Dummerston wants to, Guilford just did, and Brattleboro just did too, put in a pre-K, a preschool in the elementary system. It's about $140,000 to $160,000 to set one up. And you can't, if you're really close to the cap, you can't just put that in your budget. Even though you're going to get it back once those kids are in the system, you get contributions based on the number of students, and you get that money back. So this would be a fund that, for instance, Dummerston could use next year to put a pre-K in, and then it would be paid back into the system. But the question was, there was a question whether that was legal, and the opinion we got is that it is legal. We didn't know what the tax rates would be. The consultants from the state and some of the lobbying organizations, the Superintendent's Association, School Board Association, were saying over and over again that, oh no, Brattleboro wouldn't pay more, everybody pays the same rate. And that just didn't make sense. You can't average 4 numbers and have the lower one not get higher. And so we finally found out how to do it because of the weighting of the students and the kids when they go to the high school. It's a different rate than when they're in the elementary schools. And it shows clearly that that's what would happen. There would be a shift of resources from Brattleboro directly to Putney and Dummerston. It's different every year, but that's what it's been in the 2 of the 3 years that 3 years we looked at.
Does anyone else have
So the school board, because those things were not clear, and we had to vote on December 20th to take a formal position, because that was the regulation for the state. And 3 people were not convinced because they didn't see the evidence that it was going to work. So they didn't vote to support it. I'm going to, if we don't get snowed out tomorrow night with this new information and with the legal opinions, I'm going to ask the board tomorrow night to revote, and that may change.
Does anyone else? Okay, I'm going to, Acts 46 is like super confusing.
It is.
So I may have this wrong, but I just want to go through what my understanding is. There's 2, at this point, David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brattleboro has sent 2 proposals to the Agency of Education. One was sent by the Act 46 Study Committee.
Correct.
One was sent by the Alternative Governance Structure Committee. What my concern is, your proposal is asking us to pick between one of the 2, advocate for one over the other that Brattleboro has sent. I myself I'm not educated enough on either one to be able to say, oh, I like this one versus that one. So that's like at this point, and again, Act 46 is so confusing, and I tried to keep up with it, but it's like so confusing. So that's just sort of what my concern is, because there's 2 out there, or there's 2 up in Montpelier. And as you said, the Secretary of Education and the State Board of Education are ultimately going to decide between those 2 or force another one on us, correct? Can they force another one on us?
There's a period, I think, of a month, starting in November, where they'll say what's going to happen, and we have a month to negotiate for any changes in that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where, I'm sort of, based on my totally limited knowledge, I'm not at a point personally where I can go, oh, I like the alternative governance structure one, as opposed to the one submitted by the Act 46 Study Committee. Again, because my knowledge is totally limited. So I'm sort of hesitant to say right now, like, oh yeah, I'll support this over that, because I just don't get, I haven't immersed myself in either one. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. That's sort of where I am. I sort of feel like if I, as a select board person, write to the Secretary of the Agency of Education saying, oh, pick this one, that carries a lot of weight, but I don't understand both of them enough. I have like a basic understanding, but that's sort of where I am. But
Yeah.
when would we
No,
have
go
to
ahead.
submit a letter if we
Yeah.
were going to do it? Is there a time deadline?
Not, we're going to be meeting at some point between now and May with the Agency of Education. And then we'll go before the State Board of
Okay.
Education.
And when do they
Right.
have to make the final decision?
They're going to, the secretary, starting in May, develops a proposal for all the unmerged districts. I think it's 30, it's about a quarter of the state, 31 districts.
Yeah.
And then that gets submitted in November to the State Board, and then they will start meeting with those districts and hearing their proposals and deciding.
Let me ask you one question, then these guys are all going like this. Is there any, and maybe this is one of these, is there any thought that these two proposals, separate ones, would ever, like because there are different people in each, like the Act 46 Study Committee and the Governance Committee have different people on them?
There's a 3 or
there
4 member
overlap?
overlap, yeah,
Like,
but
is
they're significantly different, yeah.
Okay, so is there any thought that maybe the two, would the two groups ever be able to like compromise and see things the same way, or is that just out of the question?
Well, the basic question is, what's the governance structure going to
Okay.
be? Is it going to be one for everybody, one
Yeah.
consolidated one, or is it going to be local ones with a different
So that's
structure?
sort of like the major difference.
Yeah, and that's really the,
Okay.
that's definitely the major
Okay,
difference.
that helps me understand.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. Were you guys down here wanting to ask questions?
I just had 2 comments. I sort of read your proposed letter idea, not a proposed letter yet, a little differently than Kate did, because I kind of see the main thrust of it being respect the wisdom of the voters in rejecting school consolidation.
Yeah, that's it. It's not asking for us to endorse the alternative.
Right, so I want to just throw
Okay.
that out there.
Because there's been no vote on the alternative governance structure by the town. Okay.
There hasn't been officially vote
Okay.
clearly on that.
Okay.
And there won't be because it's not required.
Right.
I think it's important though to point out that for the 3 years that this process was going on, there was a large number of people from all the towns meeting regularly and working together to defeat that proposal. And I doubt that there are maybe 5% of the letters or the conversations or the things that were said on BCTV or anywhere that didn't say, we don't have to do this, we can keep what we have and change what we have and get there, because the law says you can. The message, and the reason I know that was constantly mentioned in all of the communications, is because the state was saying, you have to be careful. The agency and the, what would you call them, the advocacy organizations, the business managers, the superintendent associations, school board associations, were all saying, oh, you have to do it. If you don't do it, the state's going to do it to you. And that is a possibility. But there was a section in there, Section 9, that said that if it's not the best, it's not the best, or it may not be possible or the best model, then you don't have to do it. And so that message was very clearly on the minds had to be on the minds of voters because it was in every communication.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I asked the question just sort of leading to my point is that I think, a statement about respecting democracy is something that might be important, but you're putting in the word that respecting the wisdom.
I
And
was
so
gonna say that too.
that puts us into a position of taking a position. And that leads me into my next question of what is our purview in this whole situation? Like, is it correct for us to take a position in this situation?
Well, that's up to us. I mean, we have the authority to do that if we wish. I think
Sure.
because of the tax implications and the fact that we are probably more aware, I think, than most of the differential between us and the surrounding towns and the role that the taxpayers and the property taxpayers in Brattleboro pay in supporting the economic existence of this region, with all of the services that we provide and all the infrastructure we provide, that we need to be kind of watching out for ourselves. And this is a situation where we will be shifting money to towns that frankly don't need it.
So.
Yeah.
And the dam, if, again, as I said it with difficulty because it's hard. For some reason, I can't quite get that as clear in my mind as it usually is. But if no money is added to the budget, then Brattleboro would lose resources. There would be a shift of resources to the surrounding communities and our students, the highest poverty numbers in the region for sure. The most underserved population would suffer, would lose resources, would lose services.
I don't think there's any question. We're all concerned about the impact on
Yeah.
the taxpayers. It's just, I have a little bit of a concern about what we actually have control over.
Well,
And-
the other
and
thing I
taking a
think is that,
position that's a little murky to be able to take from our
Yeah.
limited
yeah,
knowledge.
I think the other thing, and we can talk about and work on draft language, but we, as elected officials the people who voted for us, and their vote counted when they voted for us. If they voted to keep the school system, the vote doesn't count. I mean, it's the same people. And I think that making a statement about that from elected officials is an important component.
My only, and I am kind of in the same boat with Kate, is that, this thing is so convoluted and so, it's been debated both sides that, and I'm not saying whether you're right or wrong. What I'm, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, there's got to be people out there that would completely counter what you're saying and say, well, no, this isn't going to happen.
Well, not anymore, because we've got the
Well,
legal opinions now.
But I'll bet, I'll guarantee there's people out there that would still
Oh, yeah.
argue
Yeah.
that other side, saying, no, you're looking at it wrong, or, so that's where, and I haven't tried to keep up on it that much, because it is so, not unless you were immersed in it, you guys are
Yeah.
immersed in it every week for years.
2.5 years.
2.5 years. So, unless you're at a board, on a school board or whatever, or you're a teacher or whatever, or an administrator of that, I don't know if you'd keep up on it that much. And I frankly haven't. But I know that there are two distinct arguments in this case. And they're both strong, or else they wouldn't have had that close of a vote.
It wasn't close, John. It was 2-1.
Well,
It was 2-1.
okay.
It's like, over 65% of people voted against it.
Yeah. So,
In all the towns, it was
Yeah.
universal throughout the region.
so I mean, that's,
But if I voted for it, which I did, does that mean I should not support the letter? What I'm trying
Depends on
to
what-
guide you
yeah.
towards the democracy feel of it, rather than taking a position, because my personal position was I was actually for that, taking the deal, as they say. And I don't want to argue that,
Yeah,
but I was arguing based on the facts and the information I had. That's my own personal decision. So that's where it gets into a can of worms, I think, for us to take a position. But
Yeah.
I
Well, I
don't want
think-
to try to discourage you. I just think
Yeah.
there's issues of purview and there's issues of.
No.
I'd like to concentrate more, if we're going to do anything, on the democracy.
yeah. it's-
Respecting the vote,
Yes.
not
yeah,
respecting the wisdom.
I'm fine with that,
yeah.
too. I also want to point out that in 2 consecutive representative town meetings, there was resolution from the floor saying that we did not want anything to be forced upon us, that we wanted the will of the voters to be followed. So it's also consistent with what was said at town meeting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from your position,
Yeah.
saying that about,
Yeah.
that I voted the other way. I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out that there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approving the alternative governance structure application, that doesn't have to be there, because you haven't read it. It's 36 pages, plus there are 2 addendums, and probably will be more. But I'm perfectly fine to have the Lord to say, respect the wisdom of the voters. The wisdom of the voters means that we're going to try for an alternative. That's the connection.
I think the word wisdom might be trickier than a word like decision or outcome of the vote, just because that seems a little less like a
Or
side, whereas
the
wisdom is
will of the
saying,
voters, or something like
or
that.
something that doesn't make it sound like the people that voted the other way were not wise, or that we were on a side.
Right.
Do you want to draft something? And
Yeah.
maybe we can,
Yeah.
sort of mull
Yeah.
it over? Does that sound like a good
yeah, do you
idea?
have it after town meeting?
Well, actually,
Nope.
it will come up, oh, you know what, then you have to, it'll come up again at town meeting. So, and that may provide some guidance as well.
Since we
Yep.
have until May or
Till May,
something,
yeah.
we can maybe work on something that we can all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Does any?
Want to table it till the next meeting? Or
Yeah.
move to table? Or
I don't think we
just-
have to,
okay.
because we just had it like as a discussion. I mean, we're all sort of, if you draft something, we can mull it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, would you draft it and send it to me?
Mull. Does anyone in the public have any comments, what we were just talking about? All right.
It's like they're not stepping on that one.
Well, thanks a lot.
You're on your own on this
That's a
one,
lot
fellow.
of help.
All right, who
Before
won?
we all go, just remind everybody, is it the
Polls are closed.
Polls
Yeah,
are
who won?
closed.
Who won?
But the 14th, is it the 14th?
Yes.
Next Wednesday?
Yes.
The 14th
Yep.
is the town meeting informational, pre-town meeting informational meeting. It's going to be at Academy School. Prior to that, there are caucuses. I believe they'll start at 6:30.
Correct.
Door-
So is this next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday, the
At
14th.
Academy.
Out at Academy School, 6:30, they'll have caucuses for voting for reps in the open, any open seats in districts 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure there's going to be some. If anyone has any questions, you can call the town
Maybe
clerk's
a
office
lot.
to find out. Find out at 7 o'clock is when the informational meeting is, and what we'll be doing is going through the budget and going through the articles on the town meeting warning to talk about them, answer any questions that anybody may have. So it should be informative.
And exciting.
And exciting.
Mhm.
And
It's
you-
always exciting.
And since Western Avenue's
caucus.
paved and with no potholes, it'll be good to get to. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourning. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Ann.
everybody.
This